Detroit. You're in tune to Ron March and the Ron March Show. We're broadcasting out of all right. Today's date is May 27th, and we have a beautiful show for you today. We have a special guest, and then we have a super special guest. Our special guest will be a visitor that was here once before, Brother Darvis L. out of Arizona. And then we have Miss Stephanie Turner, who's going to give us some history on her ancestors and the Turner heirs. She is an heir of the Turner family. So let me say good afternoon to Mr. Darvis L. Are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
All right, buddy. How you been? Everything good?
Great, brother. Can't complain.
All right. Sister, are you there? Miss Turner?
Yes, I am.
All right. Now, we have a lot to talk about, and I asked Brother Darvis L. to come to help me move this along, but I want to make sure we don't leave out anything. We have plenty of time. We're going to do a 2-hour show today, and if time cannot give us what we want, we will do a part 2 next week if everybody's in for it. But let's see how we roll today, and let me open the program to you, Miss Turner. And you intrigued me when you said you have history of your family back in 1548. So give us a little rundown on that, and let's start moving forward with the time machine. Is that good?
Okay. My history starts with the Pamunkey Indians, which are actually the Powhatan Indian Confederacy. Starting with my great-great-grandmother, Miss Cutlow, who was actually a Tuxton. Her name was Nanny Cutlow, and married Paul Miles, who was a chief of the Powhatan tribe. That's my 1548 starting point. These are all...
Give us the name of that chief again, of the Powhatan back then.
Paul Miles. He was a Pamunkey chief.
Yes, Paul Miles. And that's Mills?
No. On the reservation, it was spelled Miles.
Oh.
We didn't get Mills until after they came off the reservation. They spelled it Mills.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Continue.
It starts there. It starts with my grandfather, John Watson Mills, who was born and raised at Hanover in Kings William County, Virginia in 1847. He watched the War of the States. I have information. I can carry him back to his early ages of watching on the Patuxent, watching them at Pigeon Hill come in.
Whoa.
For them is West Point.
All right. Stop right there and tell me, what year was the war? Now, I was told there were 2 so-called, quote-unquote, civil wars. One, when the Powhatan were fighting the Iroquois or the Algonquian Nation or Confederation. And then there was the one that they taught us in school with the blue coats and the red and the gray coats. Now, which war did you?
1862.
1862. Okay.
Yes.
And that was the blue coats and the red coats, blue coats and the gray coats.
The blue coats and the red coats. Right. That's when the
Blue-
African and Indian slaves were fleeing north on barges to get away from this.
Okay. Okay. But let's stay there a minute and explain that was there a war between the Powhatan Confederation and the Iroquois Confederation?
There was a war in that era, yes.
Okay.
Fighting for land because the chief had already been given 7 tribes,
Okay.
and which he had by lineage. He gained others by fighting.
All right. Well, I have a book called The Confederation of the. Help me on that title of that book, Darvis. The one with Noble Drew Ali's grandfather or great grandfather, John Drew.
Drew.
He said the war was going on in 1855, and that's what I'm asking about. I'm not trying to throw you off of your history, but I was just wondering. I wanted to clear up: was there 2 so-called civil wars? That's what I'm.
Yes,
that's what I'm asking.
Yes, Sister Stephanie, I think you're referring to the conflict between the Algonquin and the Powhatan regarding the situation with Captain John Smith, the war that transpired that led to other conflicts. That would have been the initial conflict between the Algonquin and the Powhatan. That's the one he's talking about, which led to other initial conflicts.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
And I just want to know if you had any history on that. That's all.
I do not have the in front of me. No.
Okay. But you are aware of what we're talking about.
No, I know of. Yes, I do know of that.
All right.
The Algonquin and the Mattaponi actually went against the Pamunkey, went against the chief.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Go ahead with 1862. Your in-law was watching the battle as it went on.
My great grandfather was watching.
Yes.
He was 15 years old during that, and according to what we have, that was a war between the states.
Yes. That's what they teach us.
In 1862.
Yes. But who was in Congress that walked out? Do you know anything about that? In other words, they had the date of the Sine Die. They talk about the Sine Die when they didn't have a quorum in Congress and it was disrupted. Is that a fallacy or is that something that you know about?
I can half hear you, Mr. March.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get a little closer to the mic. How about now? Is that a little clearer?
You said that you're asking me about the
Sine Die, when they walked out of Congress, and the government taught us that was the shutdown of the United States government because there was not enough to set a quorum. And I guess I'm asking you, are you aware of anything about that?
No, I'm not.
Okay, all right. Well, what I'm doing is really taking what they taught us in school, and I'm trying to put it into where you have the history, the real history, to show my audience that there is a huge fallacy on what we were taught. That's all. So you go ahead. I'll just listen to more. Go ahead.
I was giving you the information as far as with the lineage of what he had owned, the chief had owned, because some lands were already, or shall I say, tribes. There were actually 34 for him that were given.
Okay. Okay.
So,
all right. Go ahead, continue. I'm listening.
Okay.
Yep.
Most of these, we talked about it before. What they call the dogs, the DOAG.
The days. We would call them the days, brother Ron.
They call them the dogs or the Tuxans. These tribes, they gave them the names in which they were already here. Like you said, we had talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just happenstance to be here. Today, the same tribe, the Pamunkey tribe now, is predominantly white.
How did that happen? How did that?
It happens because of finances. They can buy their way into this.
Brother Ron and Sister Stephanie, let's go back and deal with. I think we could probably get on track if we start with the initial conflict between the Algonquin Confederation and the Pamunkey, basically which caused the Algonquin to split from the Pamunkey, dealing with Captain John Smith, John Ross, and Pocahontas. Then I think she could probably lead into why the days in the Pamunkey today are considered white and why some of them are considered white today. If we start right there, I think you could probably get a basis on how everything came to be as it is today, and even the truth regarding Pocahontas and the Turner family.
All right.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
If we start with Pocahontas, Pocahontas was married prior to John Smith ever getting there. She was married at 14.
Okay.
John Smith's information on her is that she saved his life. Some say, and from what I've heard from since I was a child, she was taken.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
She was taken as they have no information on her husband, her Indian husband. They have no information on her children when she was married to Camor. She doesn't. There's no information given in any history book that says what happened to her children, what happened to her husband, because when she married John Ross, she was still married to an Indian man.
Whoa, okay.
So the question that I had as well is, Brother Ron, as we mentioned before, history tells us that she was married. Basically, history will say that Captain John Smith had taken her, but whose child did she actually have? Because later it says that she was married to John Ross. It's kind of like two different stories. So who was she married to, and whose child did she have as far as on the European side?
Right. According to what I've always been told, is that she was pregnant with John Smith's child when her and John Ross, when she was sent to work on the other side with John Ross. And John Ross married her and accepted her child, whose name is Thomas Ross.
Okay.
But actually, because she was told that John Smith had died, going back to England. This is the only way that she would ever marry John Ross, is because she was told that John Smith had passed.
Okay. Wow.
So what was the take that Chief Wasanaka? As a matter of fact, can you give us the correct name of the chief and also the correct name of Pocahontas? She had another name as well.
Yes. And Thomas, I have a hard time saying their names. So
yeah.
If you can help me out on that.
I'm in Amun Netakata.
Amunakata was
Amun Netakata, correct.
Was Pocahontas.
That was her real name?
Go on.
Okay.
I didn't hear you.
All right. I'm listening. When he said what her name was, I just pronounced her name. I thought I did. But you go ahead. I'm listening to two of you. Y'all know more about it than
her true name, but someone gave her the name Pocahontas. Some say it was, the English. I don't know. I know in England it was Elizabeth. She was Lady Elizabeth. But throughout our learning of who this person was, through Disney, she became Pocahontas.
Now, John Roth was an elite of England, correct? So he wasn't just a regular citizen. So if they would have married, then she would have had a royal title, correct?
Right. She had a royal title. She was Lady Elizabeth Roth because of his title in England. She would come up when she was there. John Roth was not just anybody on the street. John Roth came here because he was commissioned by the king to come here. So he came with power.
Okay.
And he, by marrying her, because he knew what the king's presence in this new world, the new Americas, was to conquer the land from the Indians. So when he married her, he knew that he would conquer all the land of Waskanuska because this was his heir.
Yes. And the women owned the land.
The women owned the land, not the men.
Yes.
The women owned the land. So with that, he knew that he would have not only power in England, not only have land in England, but have the largest man lot in America.
Yes. Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
So he wasn't dumb. He was a very smart man.
Yes, he was. We discovered in Michigan that the first governor of the state of Michigan married a black woman in the Northwest Ordinance area, so he could have the land up here in the Detroit and Michigan area, 5 states. The governor of the first governor of Michigan. So yes, I can understand it.
Yeah, that was a common practice. There was a common practice at certain times in history. There's also a girl by the name of Sarah Rector, and she was full-blooded Creek in the Oklahoma Territory. Young girl. As a matter of fact, she was said to be one of the wealthiest girls in the 1800s in the Americas. And she was receiving letters. Once they found out who she was, they tried to change her status from Creek to Negro so they could confiscate the land. And she was also receiving letters from wealthy businessmen back on the East Coast, wealthy Europeans. They were sending her love letters. She was 15 years old. And I believe eventually she married a gentleman from the Kansas area. But Sarah Rector is her name. You could probably pull her up online. But it was a common practice to go after the women because the women had the power in the land.
Yes.
And that's how a lot of Europeans actually gained land is going after the women. The other question I had for Stephanie was go ahead, brother.
I was just going to say, we went to the cemetery, Elmwood Cemetery in the Detroit area, where this governor was buried, and he had a huge plot of land, a large monument of himself, and all of his offsprings were on both sides. And then you ask the question, where was the wife? And they tell you to go around the back side of the monument, and there's a plaque on the ground, a dirty plaque. They never cleaned it on the ground of her name, and her name was Sarah also. And it's around the back side of the huge monument of this governor. So yes, I understand. A lot of that went on. But you made a statement that I wanted to know. You said that they wanted to change her name or change her nationality from Crete to Negro because they wanted the land. So are you saying that the Negro, quote unquote, the black man, the indigenous American owned the land and the Indian, quote unquote, Crete did not?
Well, no, they wanted to change her status from an indigenous status, from a free person, just like, of course, we're aware of the titles black, Negro, colored, African American, and at a certain time in history, Ethiopian was used, or Ether was used. They wanted to change the title, change the status, because it was all about class and status. They wanted to change it to Negro or colored or African American or black because those were 14th Amendment titles, which was chattel. If you carried those titles, then you were basically agreeing to chattel. And Sister Stephanie can kind of clarify that more on why the Algonquin kind of broke away from the Pomanki. If we can get into that, I think, because it's like history repeats itself. I believe the Days began to take on different titles. Is it correct that the Days wanted to? Was it the dog tribes that went unto the Europeans and started to do business? Was that what happened, sister?
Yes. Now, one of the chiefs married which was Mormon at that time, or Christian, and she wanted them to take on the effects of the Christian and not that of the tribe, of their nationality, their own religion, so to speak. And they separated because of it, because they didn't want to take on the religious aspects of the Europeans. They wanted their own. They didn't want that.
Ooh.
So they separated the tribes.
Okay. Who was how did you pronounce that, Jarvis? What was that tribe that came out of the I'm getting mixed up, the name. You called it Papunkian. What tribe was that? Where did that come from?
The Pomanki came out of the Powhatan. That's what Sister Stephanie, she's Pomanki. Came out of the Powhatan or Powhatan Confederacy. Chief Wansanaka.
Okay.
Chief
That clears it up.
Wansanaka was the Pamunkey Indian. But
all right.
his nation, his confederacy, was the Powhatan Confederacy.
Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
There was another chief that you mentioned, Brother Ron and Brother Stephanie. There was another chief you mentioned who was slaughtering Europeans. What was his name? But basically what he did was he learned from him.
Aupeti was Wakapetchu's brother, half-brother. Wakanatska, half-brother. You hear about Aupeti everywhere. Aupeti is in the history books as carrying the slaughter. They say in America's history books, and I'm reading from that book, Aupeti was he slaughtered half of the new American, the soldiers. And they say Aupeti was, dangerous, and Aupeti was kidnapped, taken to Spain by the Spaniards, taught their language, was able to read and write maps. He was part of their elite, became a part of their elite. Aupeti went to Mexico, okay? Then went to Cuba. At a time when Cuba did not even exist. he asked the Ethiopian to bring him back home so that he could talk in his language to the tribe's chiefs to get them to turn over land. He tricked them.
Whoa!
Is what he did.
Mm-hmm.
He took their knowledge. Aupeti was in my mind, Aupeti was great because he took what they taught him and used it against them. And he killed them. He killed 347 soldiers out of the 700 that were there.
Okay, so now, Aupeti, the Algonquin would call him Opskan Kanu. So Opskan Kanu wasn't that Wansanaka's brother?
He was his half brother.
Okay.
Whoa.
Okay, that was his half brother.
What land was this? All these battles, where were they fought? In the 13 colonies, East Coast, let's say, or were they in a territory like the Northwest Ordinance? Do you have any idea?
Territory, okay, because according to this, Aupeti in 1622, which he was in the Jamestown settlement area, which is the southern part of it.
Okay.
And he, like I said, he had all the knowledge. He knew where they were going to hit the Indians. He knew how they planned to do it. So when he lined up the Confederacy against them, he took their knowledge of where they were going and got there before they got there.
Wow.
Okay, but history claims, that Aupeti, he was a savage. He wasn't a savage. They even gave him Don Vanos, Los Vanos. They gave him his name. But you don't hear that when you hear the story of Aupeti. They don't tell you that they took him at a young age and that he came up in the statute of the ranks of the Dutch and the Spaniards. He knew their language. He knew what they were going to do. He knew how they were going to do it. He was able to read the maps and the layout.
Wow!
So they give you their history, but it's their history and how they made it up.
Yes, his story.
So if they had said we raised him, we taught him, and then he went against us, I don't think that would have sounded very good. He's a savage, and after his brother died, he took over the tribe, and then he came after us. No, he didn't do that. Wow. He came after him. But I went and got yesterday. I went to the library because I knew I was going to be talking with you all. And in the history book, with the conflict with the Indians, they talk about him. And they say that he wiped out half of Jamestown. He did not. He didn't even go to Jamestown because his niece had married on that settlement and he was not going to go in there. He forewarned them that they would not be touched, but everything else was going to die.
Whoa.
Or he would die trying.
Man, oh man. Okay.
I have a couple questions. You mentioned Cuba. That the chief Aupeti went to Cuba, correct?
Yes.
Now it's very interesting that John White, when he had captured some natives, he pressed the vessel up the river. The history is that a storm basically pushed him out to sea. And somehow he turned south to avoid it, but he headed to the Caribbean. It only says he headed to the Caribbean. And he went to Cuba. That makes sense now, because the story only says he went to the Caribbean, and somehow he secured another ship and was given rations to return back to Virginia. So that was always interesting to me is why he would have pressed on to the Caribbean. Now we know possibly Cuba. And what was going on in Cuba? Who was down there? Was this one of the sultans? Was this a Moorish settlement that was running the coast of the Americas, or what was going on in Cuba that he went there to get? Because as we know, sister, that when we talk about the European moving up and down in the Americas, you couldn't do that freely.
No.
You had to have permission to move about.
Yeah, but as we had said, Aupeti had land. So I think the path that they took was his land already. So they didn't need to have passes, so to speak. This was a part of his Confederacy that would have led them to Cuba without having a problem.
Okay. Wow.
That land was his. That waterfront was his. But my thing was, I tried to find information because they called Cuba was part of the Caribbean.
Correct.
But it states in when you look up Aupeti's name, his Spaniard name, and they tell you where he went, and that he went to Cuba. I'm like, who? Yeah, I said the same thing you said, Tarvin. Was that the Moors that were in Cuba? It had to be, because we were already here.
Yes. Yes. All of this is new to me. I'm listening. Where are you getting this information? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When you look at the original maps of the Americas, and now it's very hard to find an original map of this. Because when you look at the originals, it's not the Americas at all. It's Africa.
Yes, yes.
That northeastern province was us.
Correct.
Wow.
They just wasn't part of it all.
Brother Ron, you had mentioned going back to Pangea,
yes,
the western seacoast of Africa, and of course you have to remember we have to bring up the landmass of Atlantis that sank. But if you bring that up and you connect the continents, the northwest, the northeast part of the Americas would really be northwest Africa.
Western Africa.
Yes. Right. And you said there were several Pangeas. It wasn't just one humongous earthquake, cataclysmic. There were more than one of these earthquakes that we're talking about. Is that correct? Or are you saying that? Pardon?
Through time, yes. When they were breaking up, and some of it was done by. Some of it was man-made. Once again, there was a lot of technology in the past that we haven't even tapped into today, as far as changing the courses of rivers, breaking up of continents. So some of it was done on purpose. It wasn't all just nature taking its course. It was actually done by magic. Some of it, even the sinking of Atlantis, that was done. The island of Atlantis, or Atlant, or Lemuria, that was done as well by magic. But going back to the one landmass, that was called Pangea, European word, Pangea. I'm pretty sure the natives had another name for that, but it's well documented that there was one landmass before the continent split.
What did Stephanie, this is for you. what did your people call themselves back in the day? Indian or what? What did they call themselves?
They call themselves Indians.
They
but
did.
if I talk with my early on in my life going to the Reds when I was a kid, I remember Martin Luther May saying that we were here, that the Indian word came from the English, that we were
Yes.
part of the Moors, that we came along and they called us, but we were never called that before. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. Because the Moor we were here. The African was here. How we broke off and how we became all these other people, or all these other nations or of people, we had to come from one person. Today, we hear more about our origin, even that of the Anglo-Saxon. He too came from the African, which was who? The Moor.
The Moors, yes. Wow. Well, I know they try and say Columbus, out of his navigation, thought he was in India and used that term, and that was in so-called 1492. So I was just wondering, did your people call themselves something other than Indian? That's all.
No, not that I've known.
All right. Well, let's continue, and let's do something in the area of the original colonies, so-called original colonies. 1600. Tarvis made it clear that the first part of 1600, the European tried to hide it because there was so much infighting among themselves, being crooks and whatever they were, that they couldn't get established. They tried that Virginia colony several times before it was founded. And then we get into 1625 and 1628, that type of thing. So do you have any history in that era, during that time?
During the 1600s?
Yes, about 1620, 1640, right in that area, yes.
Well, during that time is Aupetu's regime. That's when Aupetu took over.
Okay, and that was he was a chief of a large. When you say confederation, we're talking about multitudes of people. Well, several people belonging to that confederation, or several tribes. Yes.
Aupetu
Go ahead.
The land from Massachusetts to Mexico.
Woo! Mercy.
That was his policy.
Wow. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. When he married Pocahontas, can you imagine what he would have owned?
Wow.
The whole East Coast of America.
Yes. But you're going across to Mexico. Don't forget, Tarvis, you're coming down to Florida, then you're crossing over to Texas,
Correct.
Getting into Mexico. So you're talking about a whole lot of land down there.
A whole lot of land.
Yes.
So who was Aupeti coming from this side? Because I can only come from. I was mentioning it to Brother Ron before. I can only come from the Algonquin side and the Cherokee. But so who was Aupeti to the Algonquin? Because now we're getting into the Algonquin Confederacy and area and territory. Were they one initially?
Aupeti was an Algonquin. His mother was Algonquin.
There it is. Okay.
There it is. Yes.
Okay.
Wow. Now, question to you. This is a good question. To you specifically, Ms. Turner. Your name would you call that name a tribe? Would that be a tribe, a family of a multitude of people, several hundred people? Or how did you do what you did? Go ahead.
Which name? The Powhatan?
No, the Turner name.
Oh.
Tunica.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Is that a tribe or was that a family? That
was a tribe.
Yes. So my name is March. So I could have a tribe called March, possibly. But it would be on the mother's side, and her name was Gray. So I'd have to go that route. But I'm trying to figure out, I think Big Mama, the way Big Mama raised me and most of my era, I'm 75, 74 years old. She ran everything. She controlled everything. And she had a family of hundreds of people, children, across the board. She had 8 children. All of them had children. And then, that type of thing. Are we talking about a family tree like that when it comes to Tunica? Or are we talking about... Okay. So the tribe of Tunica joined with other tribes and begin to grow into a nation of people. And then they...
That's
Okay. You see where I'm going, Tarvis? We got to get back to that. We got to get back to that type of living. That's what I've been pushing for. That grandma type thing.
Yes, sir. Big Mama.
Big Mama. Yes, we got to get back to that Big Mama thing. Yeah. Woo. Okay.
Now, I had also heard on this side, Sister Stephanie, I had heard that Pocahontas in her younger days, I believe the Europeans, before they made contact, were trying to build some type of structures. I don't know if they were churches or if they were trying to build their own type of courthouses, and she was burning them down. Do you know anything about that?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
Oh.
That wasn't Pocahontas. You know who that was?
No,
that
who was
Lineage. I sent Mr. March a picture of a plaque that's in the ground in Fairfax County to this day. That was Henrietta Carter. That was Nanny Cutcliffe.
Okay. Wait a minute. When you said that was Pocahontas' nanny, is that what you said?
No,
or was
that was in Fairfax County today. Okay.
Okay.
There is a plaque in the ground in Fairfax, Virginia, that says, from this spot, number 20, W220, 120 feet, stood the first courthouse of Fairfax County, built in 1742. A band of hostile Indians in 1752 burnt it down. That was Aupeti's daughter. She burnt it. Every time they built it, she'd burn it down until they moved it.
And her
because she said that was holy ground, and you could not build on it. So she burnt it down.
What was her name again?
That was his daughter. So, they say they talk about her to this day, and that was Nanny.
Nanny.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the women were just as warriors.
When her father died, she took over the tribe.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
She She was Keziah Tartan. She was the firewoman warrior. She took it over. And I have a picture. You have a picture for Mr. Marsh. I think I sent it to you.
Did you text it or did you email it?
I emailed it.
Oh, when I looked at what you sent me today, and I got maps and
You
pictures.
got that original map?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got that. Yes, I
wanted you to see that.
Okay.
That original map.
All right.
Now, that map is supposed to have been the map that John Smith mapped out.
Wow. Okay.
Which was no mistake a military operation, correct?
Thank you. That's right. It was. It was a military operation for them to go there and to conquer that land in any way possible. And if they had to be killed, to kill them. And they did a fine, good job of it.
Now, what happened to Pocahontas? Was she killed? I'm sorry, brother.
To this day, Pocahontas.
It's okay.
Pocahontas, they said once. There are many versions. Nobody really knows whether Pocahontas was killed or whether she actually had pneumonia. But they say after John Ross got the tobacco recipe that he no longer needed Pocahontas because he would have inherited from her the land, and he would have owned the tobacco recipe on how to get that tobacco to grow.
Wow.
But there really is no true lineage. Pocahontas was buried in England. When people from the Americas start to come to claim her, they moved her body. So nobody even knows where Pocahontas' burial is now. I have a cousin, Rose, all Tartan, who is, for all intents and purposes, the spokesperson for the Res. She does a lot of the storytelling. She has pictures of where she's been to a plaque, but it is not where Pocahontas is buried because nobody really knows where she's buried. They moved her body.
Did they change her? Was her name Elizabeth when she was in England?
Her name was Lady Elizabeth.
Yes. I know where you go. I know where you go. I know where you're going, brother. I know where you go.
Well, they've often said that Queen Elizabeth had a lot of black blood and that she was related to Haile Selassie. And I heard all this when I was very young. And what I'm hearing now...
And had heritage here in the Americas.
Yes. Yes. So I can see why they would hide that. They don't want no one to find that body. Because that could be the original Queen Elizabeth. I'm just...
That's right.
Because we know that England was here in the States. It wasn't in Europe. It was actually at a certain time it was only here in the States.
Yes, right. in the New York area. Yes, state of New York area. Yes.
That's right.
And the king, King George III, who was, well, it might have been one before him, but I know King George III was a very smart, conniving, manipulative person, king, who did certain things like this. They had white supremacy. I don't know how that got into this whole process, but somebody was planning that a long time ago. Because once they took a toehold, and where we are today on Earth, not just in the States, white supremacy is evil and has always been that way.
And I sent you a picture of I think I sent both of you a picture of King George III.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yep. And man, the European spirit I know we're not I know I'm not a psychologist, but there need to be some study on that. Because once they start mixing, how could he do some of the things that he did if he wasn't of their making? You kind of get it? You know what I mean? And then even if we deal with Abraham Lincoln, I've seen pictures of him. He favored King George III. He had a mulatto look about him. And mercy, what he did in setting up what he did, and then hooked up with the Pope, King of the Pope Ninth, Pope Pius, and setting up what he did. It doesn't click how that could happen. And all of us were looking at it. Where were Pocahontas, these warriors? I know they were. I don't know. The Gala, what is the what's the name of that wars? The Indian Wars.
Gullah Wars. You talking about the Gullah Wars?
Gullah War. Yes. We need to know more about that. Were they fighting each other, or were they fighting the European, trying to get him off the land? You see what I'm saying?
Well, Sister mentioned earlier. Sister mentioned earlier, and hopefully she can get into that real quick about the. You mentioned, Sister Stephanie, that specifically who was it that did not want to deal with the European, and who was it that did want to deal with him, as far as the within the Pamunkey, the Days, the Powhatan, the Algonquin, in Confederation of Tribes? Who was it that was pro and who was it that was con, specifically? How did that take place?
Well, to this day, the Mattaponi is not a part of the Pamunkey. That at one time we were. But it was the color of the skin. If your skin was dark, you couldn't go into the Pamunkey tribe. And that's even in my... I have cousins who are dark, whose mother has lineage. My grandfather, this is his family. And yet, his great-granddaughter could not go on the tribe because she was dark-skinned.
Wow.
But she could go to the Mattaponi, the Algonquin side.
Correct.
Wow.
And that's today. That's in my era.
Yes.
So...
Well, who was it that allowed the European to come into the nation, to come into the family? Who was that? Okay.
Chief Miles married a German woman, and his son, she gave him 2 sons who are now chiefs. And they said, they took on the European realm. Like I said, if you go down there, I just watched a video just now. They were doing an enactment, the 400th year of Pocahontas' marriage to John Ross. And they had a young lady named Atkins playing or portraying Pocahontas. She did not look. She looked more of the European than she did of the Indian.
Okay. What was her color? Do you know what complexion she was?
She looked Anglo to me. She did not look Indian. She did not have... When you look up the Indian, what they called the Indian, he was copper in color. He was the mulatto.
Yes.
Right? His hair was woolly.
Locks and plaits. Yeah, Webster's 1828 definition of a Indian. Okay.
These people look Anglo-Saxon. Their hair is not what, If you go to the Mattaponi side, yes, the hair is you have all grades of hair. You go to the Pamunkey side, they have the white hair.
Straight, yes.
Straight.
Man.
European.
Man.
So that took place after the marriage of the chief and the German. lady.
Right.
What class did the German lady become after the marriage? Was she a queen or something?
They no longer. Earlier on, they would have been considered that, but in our time, they were no longer considered to be queens. She would have been a wife of a chief.
Just a wife. Were the chiefs allowed to have more than one wife?
In the old times, yes.
Yeah.
In the old times, because there was no, in their time, there was no Christian marriage. So they could take on more than one wife. If he was able to take care of them and give them roof over their head and food, he could have as many wives as he wanted to have. But in this time, no.
And that mandate also came down from the woman. The woman initiated that concept, not the man. It had nothing to do with sex. It had to do with the building of a nation, because one woman could only have one child every 6 to 9 months. So the mandate from the woman's side was no woman should be alone, and so they initiated that concept to where a man could have multiple wives. There's always been more women on the planet than men. Period. And the having one wife came with the holy matrimony concept of the Vatican so-called Christian indoctrination. That's when the one wife came. And believe it or not, the reason why they started to limit getting into indentured servitude and slavery, the reason why they limited you to one wife is because it cut down your nation, because you could only have one child a year. So it cut down the numbers and it cut down the wealth that you brought into the nation. So that was another reason. That was a quick way to start to chop the numbers down over about 10, 15 years.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Sister Stephanie, are you prepared for a question? I got a couple of questions on the board. I know Tarvis or myself, we can handle it. And if you can handle it, you take care of it. Okay, Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see, where am I at? 321-9763. Do you have a question or comment with our guest?
Yes, I have a question. I'm my great grandfather. He was a first of all, how everybody doing?
Peace.
Good.
Peace, brother. Peace, everybody.
All right, my great grandfather, he went by the name Bishop Byrd, and they said that he was Cherokee, but I've been studying, they said that's not the proper way to say it, and I was wondering, do you know like anything about anybody Byrd tribe or the proper way to say Cherokee? Could you tell me?
Yeah, that's actually on the Algonquin side, brother. I hate to step in, but that's on the Algonquin side.
Is that a bad thing?
No. My family is Cherokee. The correct way to say that would be several ways. The first way is Cha-Dagi, okay? Cha-Dagi.
Yeah.
Cha-Dagi. Or Adai. Because at the time, just like in certain indigenous languages, we didn't use vowels. So the spellings were very complicated for Europeans. They couldn't pronounce a lot of words. They had a problem speaking. So I can answer that question for you. It would be Charagi or Aragi. Or Charagi.
Charagi or Aragi?
Mm-hmm. Charagi or Aragi.
Yeah,
it's almost like... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, bro.
No, I was going to say, like, do you know any elders that I can get up under and start furthering my knowledge on, the Moorish? I got a lot of books and stuff, but my sight is not real good, so I read when my eyes are not hurting me and stuff. But like I would like to get up under an elder and learn so I can teach my babies, because I really want them to understand their ancestry, and then finding out that my grandfather was Cha'agi. I think I said it right. I wanted to, further learn about it, because when I went to my grandmother's funeral, I was talking to some people that was with the Bird family, and she was telling me that the Bird means. She told me something about turtle people or the people of the river or something. She
correct.
Yeah. I was
People
like,
of the
well,
river.
I've heard that
Yeah,
turtle
and-
people before. Yeah.
Right, the people of the river. The Pomaki are the turtle tribe.
Okay, she said that was my auntie told me that, and she said, you know, we the turtle people. And I said, well, what happened to our land? And she was like, well, we gave it to the youngsters, and they just sold it for money. You know, well, what is deemed to be money? But they got rid of it because they needed a lot of stuff and a lot of land that, like my grandmother that passed away, peace be upon her. She had to sell her land because she couldn't come up with $300, and it was in a place called Havana, Florida. I don't know if you ever heard of Havana. It's down by Twin Creek, Havana, Florida. It's a little bit out, like 30 minutes from Tallahassee.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, brother, make sure you can you have that brother send Ron? Can he send you an email to get his information, and we'll put him in contact with some elders.
Here you go. All right. Young man, I've spoken with you before, I think, but my email address is.
I called you before.
All right.
I called you before, but I've been under the weather pretty much, man, so I ain't been calling back.
Okay. I want you to send me an email. Remind me of this conversation, and I will forward it to the Arizona and Brother Tarvis L, who can help you find some people that can give you some more information. Okay.
Okay. Another thing, like if I email it to you, like this phone number is just for the show. Like, would I use this phone number to email it to you?
No. You send it to me, Ron March Show at yahoo.com. That's my email address. And I'll forward it, and then somebody will get in touch with you, and you go from there. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And the way that you can do this is to go on Ancestors.com, look up some of your elders' names, and you have to work the spelling as Thomas told you. They will give you the different spellings. Look in there, and remember, Indians and slaves were property, just like land. So if they say cattle and all of that, go in there and look, because they were considered the same as a cow or a pig.
Okay, she's telling you right. All right, brother?
I know. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Now, what was the name of it again? What was the name of it? Because I'm on a cell phone, so it's breaking up a little bit.
Okay, go on Ancestors.com. And look up your family's name, like your granny's name. If you put your granny's name in and just her name, if you can find her name, put it in. It will then give you other names. But you have to go in all of those names, because you have to remember they were, just as they were blacks or indigenous, there were also whites who had the same name.
Same name.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
That was another way they stole the land.
Messed up pretty bad, but
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but okay. I'm gonna do that, brother Ron. I'm gonna send you that. I'm gonna send you that information, and then then I'm gonna go further with my journey. And I appreciate talking with y'all. Thank you.
All right, brother. Appreciate you. Yep.
All right.
Okay, we got one more call. Where am I at? 321-9763. Do you have a comment or question? 321, area code, last 4, 9763. Okay. Sounds like somebody's hanging up. Okay. All right. We'll let that one go. Okay. we covered a lot of information. I'd like to talk about the cemetery. You gave me some information on that, Sister Turner. But we're at the top of the hour. Okay? Let's take a 10-minute break, and we're going to come back and talk about Arlington and that land in Virginia. I can't think of the name of it right now. Where we got they have. Yes, we'll come back and talk about that. We'll take 10 minutes. Oh, is that all right with you, Thomas?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll be back in 10. All right.
Tarvis?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I was just reading something, Tarvis, where this is in 2010.
People, we're back. That break is over. Are you there, Brother Tarvis?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sister Turner, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. I got several calls that just came in. Before we go to Arlington, let me take, I want to make sure I don't repeat myself. Code 33337-8386. Do you have a question or comment? Area code 337, last four, 8386. Do you have a comment? Okay, go ahead, Miss.
Hi. Thank you for taking the call. I had to take it off of mute. I have a question for Miss Turner, and I wanted to ask her. I got in the middle of the call. I couldn't hear her too well. I'm hearing impaired. What your relation to Pocahontas? Where does that come in, on the mother or the father side? Because I noticed even when you look the research up, you don't hear anything in the books regarding her maternal lineage, or is just the paternal side, and how are we connecting it on the more sides? I'm not doubting that. I do have some Indian lineage in me, and I do know a lot of us, intermarried or mixed, or kind of got squashed with them on different reservations when the colonists was coming in the area. So could you elaborate on that a little bit? And I hope that people get this call will begin to look into their own ancestry, which I'm trying to do that myself, and find out whether I'm a part of the Cree Indian side or the Creek Indian side. I just hope this inspires people to really find out a lot more to get that basis of what that need, that foundation is always missing.
Okay. Ms. Turner, can you respond to that?
Yes. My side comes in from my mother's side. Her father was Partan or Pamunkey Indian.
Okay.
And
is that what they were called?
They were called Pamunkey, yes.
Oh, okay.
How do you spell it? Say it again, please.
Pamunkey.
Okay.
Monkey.
Is there any history? Do we have any history books out there? I mean, have you thought about writing anything? And from your perspective, from your family story, I mean, is there any websites websites to reference anything here?
Yes. You can go to the Pamunkey Powhatan. You can put that in, and you'll see my family already has their history displayed.
Oh, okay. See, yeah, I think some of us like to kind of reference, and hopefully it'll get a lot of us interested in getting into ours.
So, because our lineage is all that we have. It's all that we would know who we are by that. And so much of us and what we have been told of his history is so wrong for us.
Yeah.
I think if we knew more about who we were and where we came from, it would improve somewhat generationally.
Yeah, because we're all conditioned and we're a lot against each other. And, I mean, we're Europeanized or whatever, however you want to call that, and make that up because we all knew when we were going to the white man's school that a lot of that history wasn't ours. You didn't hear them talking about anybody black except for Black History Month, and that's who they wanted to put that they shot and killed out on the forefront.
Right, but you have to remember now, a lot of the nations on the southern region, okay, after Aupeti's death, some went back into other nations. And because of Aupeti, and you can read this, you can go in, just put in Aupeti's name and ask what his English name was, and they will tell you. Aupeti was Wakapeti's brother, his stepbrother, his half-brother. But what he learned when he was taken by the Spaniards, he learned the white man's ways. Yeah. And what he told his tribesmen were, in order to defeat them, you must become them. So you have a lot of Native Americans who took on that Anglo-Saxon history and became white and not Indian because they didn't want to be known as the Indian, because the Indian was then considered to be that of the indigent servant of the white. And I'm not talking about slaves. I'm talking about whites that were indigent, who were slaves before they ever reached America.
Indentured servants, right.
Right. So the Indian did not want to become him. Aupeti said, you must learn, you must go amongst them and learn their way. So what better way to do that is to get with them and get into their government and learn their way. So you have a lot of native people who took on that Anglo-Saxon image because they didn't want to, they wanted to know how they came about and what they did and be able to tell that story. So when you go on.
I was just saying, could you spell that out and repeat it a little more slowly? I didn't get it all written down.
All right, Aupeti.
I got that name. I got his name. Okay. I found that on Wikipedia. I meant the website you were saying.
Yeah. Aupeti was taken, and you'll read it in the autobiography of Aupeti. He was taken early, okay? He was taken at 14 years old by the Spaniards, the Judith, which were the priests, when they came to the Americas, which was before Columbus. They took him and they taught him. He came up in rank. He wore their clothes. He spoke their language. He could go to Mexico. The man went to Cuba, which then they called Ethiopia, the Ethiopians, which wasn't a country, it was a color.
Yes, all of part of the Caribbean and even South America at one time was referred to as the land of the Ethiopians or Ethiopia.
Right.
The Atlantic Ocean was called the Ethiopian Ocean before it was called the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
Wow.
Did you get it? Did you get that?
Yes, I did. I was looking for the website, the spelling of the website.
Pamunkey or the Powhatan?
On your family. You were stating your family.
The Powhatan is Powhatan.
Okay.
And there's much about the Powhatan, and there's much about Aupeti. Aupeti is in every American white man's history.
How do you spell Aupeti?
It is actually.
Did you get it?
It is spelled Opechahan. from Wikipedia.
That was mighty quick, young lady.
But I don't know unless you guys are spelling it completely different. But I was trying to reference while I was on the call. That's why I was asking where is the history, or if there's a website to reference for your family lineage, what you were talking about, not just what the white man got on the internet.
Yes. Yeah. There's much history about the Powhatan Confederacy, because the Powhatan Confederacy was the largest confederacy in the early 1600s.
Okay. All right. Does that answer your question, young lady?
Yes. Somewhat. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Did you have anything to add, Ms. Turner, Stephanie?
No.
I have a question.
Yeah.
All right. I have a question in the chat room that asks, would she be related to Nanny of the Maroons of Jamaica? And they're talking about the lady that you mentioned with Pocahontas. You said her name was
You mean
Nanny.
Cutlow?
Yes.
Nanny
the question
Cutlow.
Here, yes, Nanny Cutlow. Would she be related to the Maroons in Jamaica?
Not that I know of.
Okay. That was a question in the chat room. Yep. All right.
Yeah,
I thank you, ma'am, for the phone. Okay. I thank you for your call. We got one more here. 256-5223. Do you have a question or answer or comment?
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
Okay.
Either guess if they can give me any information. My grandmother's grandmother, full-blooded, we call them Native Americans, Indigenous Americans.
Okay.
All my family originate in the southern states, such as Alabama. Would you have any idea what tribe we may originate from?
What's the last name?
The Native Americans do not have that last name, but my grandmother was Craig, Craig.
It was what?
C like car, R-A-I-G, Craig.
Okay, now when you talk with Craig, you have to remember now, they didn't put in I's in a lot of that. So it may have been a different spelling. They gave you the Anglo-Saxon spelling. You have to look at the Indian spelling.
Okay.
She mentioned the state of Alabama.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I would. The Choctaw and the Creek had a very large presence in the Alabamas. They were also part of and Blackfoot as well. They were also part of the Algonquin Confederation.
And
yes.
how do you spell the Algonquin Federation?
ALQUINGON, Algonquin. That should pop up fairly simple if you do a search.
Yep. If you do a Google on it.
Now also too, sometimes you'll see the name Iroquois. Iroquois was a chief. People sometimes say the Iroquois Confederation. It was actually the Algonquin Confederation. Iroquois or Raku was a chief. So Iroquois was actually a person.
Oh, okay. One of that lady called me up one time and chewed me out.
Thank you. The second part of the question is, in the event I locate a reputable DNA company, would they be able to indicate which tribe in my DNA?
Ron, brother, you can handle that one real quick, right?
Yes. They do not give you a tribe if you have the blood of the original indigenous Americans. They give you that information. Indigenous American. That means to me that you were here before the so-called Indian. When I say so-called, I'm talking about the name Indians. You understand that?
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Before you go, sister, to make a long story short, you have to be careful of the DNA companies.
Yes.
Yes.
Because basically according to who we are, by everything is passed down. The previous sister they called up, we probably should have pointed this out at the beginning of the show. True history and information is always passed down verbally. Very few things were written down because anytime you write something down, it can be changed or it can be interpreted according to who's interpreting it and what their agenda is. So actual records of the past are already passed down verbally. Is how it was done initially. So with that, we have to be careful about a lot of things we read coming from the European side and coming from the DNA and those type of companies. I believe Ancestry.com was initially owned by the Mormon Church. I think it was called something else at first before it was Ancestry.com. But that was run by the Mormon Church. So they're not going to tell you who you really are, because if they do tell you who you really are, they got to turn over all the gold they have to you because it's yours. So just be careful of that. Keep that in mind.
Thank you so much. So far, I'm waiting for great references before I contact any company. But that's what I would like to do in the future. And you have a great evening. Thanks for taking my call.
All right. Thank you. All right. I got a question in the chat room, and then we're going to Arlington. Our time is getting short. The question in the chat room is, are you, Miss Turner, related to Nat Turner?
Yes.
That's from Hollywood, USA. Is she related to Nat Turner? You say yes?
Yes.
Okay. You better get a helmet or something when you say that, a flak jacket.
I know.
All right. So, would you like to tell us about the relationship? On whose side?
He would have been. My relationship with him came from my grandfather's side. But you have to remember that in that essence, it was that grandma series. They all belong to a tribe. Because most of what we hear about Nat Turner and his band with the Indians and going against the whites, he was very educated, which they don't speak of.
He was a genius.
He was educated, very educated.
Okay.
And he was
they never said that.
What they taught him, he turned it against them. And the reason they killed him is because he had too much of the knowledge of the government and the plans of what they were going to do. That information get out.
Yes.
They couldn't have.
Is there a real?
I didn't hear you.
Is there a real history on Nat Turner of what you just said?
That he was a genius and he knew? No. Because the white man's story, the white man, as Father said, there was nothing written about this man. Nothing in our side. It was more led down from history who he was. But when they wrote it, the white man changed it.
Wow.
Give an example of something.
Wow.
Give an example of something. I'm just going to mention a few things, Stephanie. I know that when it comes to this, there's the chain of command that has to take place through the tribe with information. But just to mention something brief to the listeners, to give them a taste of who Brother Nat Turner really was. When he was so-called hiding in the wilderness for 2 months after a couple insurrections, there were about 7 or 8 other insurrections into Georgia, all the way into Mississippi and even into Alabama when he was supposedly hiding out in the woods. There were other insurrections taking place. So Brother Nat moved about fairly simply. In order to do that at that time, we know what the time frame was, and we know the hostiles that he was up against as far as the Europeans and what they had. So just imagine what Nat Turner actually had on his side. Not only was he a genius, he spoke several languages. You had to do that in order to move about through Hampton County in certain areas because of the tribes that ran the outskirts of the area. And
I could bet you let Nat Turner come in. I could bet you let him go up and down the coast without the white man ever touching him.
Wow. Whew, mercy.
And we're talking about indigenous. We're talking about indigenous history. We're not talking about Africans that came over on slave ships. That's what they're telling you in history. We're talking about people that are from here. Always been here.
He was already here. He didn't come from a slave ship. He was a very intelligent man. He could do. He was a genius. He knew. When you had the Confederacy as large as it was, for him to move, like Carver said, for him to move about, he had to have allies that were on his side. Architecture said, I own this land from this land for as far as you can see. And no one can touch you. And
how did he die? How did Aupeti, how did he die?
Aupeti was murdered.
Yes. And he probably was turned in by some of his own people.
Yes, because he let the blacks come in and move about.
Yes. Yeah. We have a history in Michigan of a Chief Pontiac, and he has a strong history out of the Northwest Ordinance. A lot of battles against Custer and everything they put against him, and he was betrayed by his own people, and they killed him. But a lot of times they say that. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say a lot of times they say that just to discourage us among ourselves, to remind us of our snitches that we have among us. You know, it didn't really have to happen that way, but they'll always tell you that, yeah, they turned him in and they had to kill him, you know. But
there was also a lot of chiefs, too, involved in what you would call pretty much they were set up ambushes. They were invited to sign peace treaties or invited to come into peace talks, and they were ambushed.
Yeah, right. They were taken.
And then, now you remind me of Chief Black Kittle. That was the purpose. You jumping all around. That was the purpose of the Battle of the Little Bighorn, when Custer and that colonel went in there and wiped out all those women and children and seniors. He had American flag on his teepee, trying to bring on peace, and they murdered everybody in sight. Chief
women and children. Women and children.
Yes.
Women and children.
They were good at that.
Yes.
They would call that historically great battles. They were great battles historically. Okay, with a little time we have left, let's go quickly and see what we can do with the Arlington Cemetery. Tell the story the way you told it to me, Miss Turner.
At Arlington Cemetery first belonged to the Washingtons, meaning George Washington. Belonged to his wife. The land belonged to her. They tell the story that it was commissioned years ago for it to be a burial ground for soldiers. But before then, it was Freemanville, Freeman, Freemen. These were free men. They had of blacks, of slaves, of ex-slaves, I should say. They had their own village at Arlington Cemetery. They owned their own stores. They had their own blacksmiths. They had their own quarries. They had everything that they needed. They had two-story homes, saloons, everything that they needed they had there. And it was established in 1863. When you went to 1863, it was established at Arlington Cemetery.
Yes.
These were former slaves. These were, the people that were there were so prosperous that they even got black troops to protect them against the whites. Whites couldn't come in because they'd kill them. They paid them. These were prominent people who had everything that they needed at our nation's capital, most highly decorated monument in the world. Presidents are at Arlington Cemetery. Dignitaries are at Arlington Cemetery.
Correct.
Popes are at Arlington Cemetery. But yet, the story has never been told of the free man that owned the land at Arlington Cemetery, that had a village, Arlington Cemetery, that the very ground that these people broke to bury people, there was a whole city right underneath of their feet.
Wow.
Of African Americans.
Damn.
So, people, go on.
You mentioned the grandfather clause, and since they owned it from the beginning, or they had the land in the family before the European even showed up. So if you go back to your original 1500s, if they own land, the grandfather clause could be put in place. Who started that grandfather clause? Yep. Tell me something about that.
The grandfather clause stated that this land belonged to the black. It was their land. And with that, any descendant of theirs could be buried there, could own houses and land there.
And the United States was not allowed to go into that land, period, zero, zilch. They were not allowed there. No taxes, none of that trash that we see today.
That's right.
Oh.
They didn't have.
No, I just got chills, sister and brother Ron. I just got chills. I've got one last question, Sister Turner. Is there a connection between Aupeti going into Cuba and the mandate for the Sixth Pan American Conference in 1928 that Noble Drew Ali went to get the mandate for the land for the Americas? Is there a connection?
That's a beautiful question, brother.
I would say there is a connection because Aupeti was taught by them. So
he was taught by the Moors.
That's right. He was taught by the Moors.
And he owned most of the mass of America.
He owned. That's right. He owned half of America. Was his.
Jesus.
Whoa, now you done gave me chills, brother.
Ron, I got to hear you say, can somebody help me? Can you say that for me?
Help me, somebody. Good gracious alive. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. No wonder they kept us out of Cuba all this time. They did not want us to go there and learn this information.
No, they didn't want you to go. And the thing is, we could go all the time. Castro didn't have a problem with us coming, with any man coming.
Sure didn't.
He said all is welcome into Cuba.
And I believe they nationalized, I think. Didn't they nationalize in the 60s? They nationalized as indigenous?
Yes. But what he said was, do not bring your politics to my country.
Right.
Keep your politics in America. Because, and the reason for that is because he knew the truth.
Wow.
He knew.
Yeah.
I've been going back and forth to Cuba. And, people say, well, you can't go to Cuba. Cuba is locked down. I've been going to Cuba.
Yes, you told me that. And
Cuba
you haven't had any.
I haven't had any problem going to Cuba. None.
Wow. Help me, somebody.
You are welcomed by the people and you are welcomed by the government. He just asked that you leave your politics at that site. When you get off that plane in Havana, you leave it there. If you want to know my history, you come to me. I will tell you my history. But you leave American history in America. But I think that even more than that, Thomas, I think that the whole close down of Cuba from the Americas was because of that conference.
Yes.
Because they did not let Washington D.C. come in as a country. It wasn't. It's not a country.
Yeah, they didn't let was it Senator Hughes? I think they kicked him out of the conference.
They didn't let Senator Hughes come in there.
Yes.
They said you're not you don't belong here.
But they let Noble Drew Ali come in.
They let him come in.
Okay.
Because he was the people. He had that natural state of what he was supposed to have. That man coming from Washington D.C. had nothing.
Unbelievable.
Closed down the country for 50-some years because they didn't give you the land.
Yep.
They gave it to an indigenous person. And if half of us, Tarvis, knew that history, just that little bit of history,
it's a wrap.
that they can even trace in Chicago, they can actually
it wouldn't have
go
to be half.
For themselves.
Yes.
That a black man owned half of America. It was blown away. To this day.
To this day. I'm
day.
going to do some research on this. How do you pronounce it? Aupeti. Say it again.
Aupeti.
I'm going to do some research. Yes, Aupeti.
When you see his Spanish surname, it's going to blow you away.
And Wikipedia probably got a nice spread on it.
He was taken by the Jesuits.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesuits came to the Americas before Columbus, supposedly.
Man, oh man. Well, now, Tarvis, are you telling me that question that you just asked after the chills just came to you today?
Yeah, brother.
Don't hold it back. Don't hold back. Let me hear.
Well, when I first heard your show, I heard that spirit in your voice, and it was the same thing that came over me quite a while ago.
Oh,
it's everyone has bits and pieces and questions, but if we don't begin to build as individuals and put away all the titles that divide us, man, I mean that's what's holding us back. Because these titles that don't really mean much. Well, we're all a part of the human family. You possess melatonin, you're a part of the human family. Let's get together and build and get this information so we can get it all straight and move forward as a nation. That's what time it is. So that's why I was pressed to introduce you to Sister Stephanie, who taught me so much. Going back almost 10 years ago, when she was in this area, she taught me quite a bit, and and it was only because I knew certain things that she opened up to me. I mean, I could tell that it was a time period it took her to open up. But yeah, brother, I got chills, man. I got chills, man. I got chills. I'm just thankful that we got a chance to build. I'm really thankful for that. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you too, Stephanie. Love you.
I do, Mr. Marsh. That is to have this forum for us to learn who we are, who we truly are, and where we truly came from. And our inheritance is not that of an acre and a mule, but of a continent. Of a continent. Not an acre and a mule, because everybody worried about the acre and the mule. The hell with the acre and the mule. I want the whole continent.
Give it all
to me.
Yes.
That's what time it is. That's what time it is.
Well, listen, I got goo gobs of questions, and we only got 5 minutes, so let's try to rush through. And maybe we could do this again later, another time. I'll get with the both of you to see what your timetables are, because we got some questions. So let's just get the question and then hang up so we can answer and move to the next question. And I'm going to let everyone know I'm going to try and get both of these two beautiful guests back again. So let's be courteous. Give me your question, and let's move on and hang up, and we'll try and answer. I'll start with 256-3223. Do you have a question or comment?
I think you already got me.
Okay, good. Thank you. I thought I did too. Here we go again. Area code 314-0440. Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I have a comment. You guys want to look up something called, I'm looking it up now online. It's called The Law Stories concerning Nat Turner. And they got a couple of usurps on there that will tell you about, that's aligned with what the guest was saying about Nat Turner was inclined about the law, about the republic. And it actually tells you that. So if you look it up about the law stories concerning Nat Turner, it will give you that information.
Okay, it's spelled L-A-W stories, law stories?
L-O-S-T? Law stories.
Yeah, just law stories.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, brother. Go ahead, sister.
Hello.
Go ahead,
I'm Coretta from Monroe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a comment. I've been looking up my family history, and my great-great-grandfather, whatever number it is, he was white, and he was indentured to Nat Turner's grandfather. So what he did was he moved to North Carolina and married my grandmother, which was black, who had land, which the land is still in the family. So we was already here. The land is still there, and everybody that was on, when he came in, his father told him, if he go down North Carolina, don't get caught, because if he get caught, he's going to be back into slavery. So if we was slaves, then why would he tell a white person, don't go to North Carolina, don't get caught? We was already here, people just don't know it.
Yeah. The Europeans were the first slaves in this hemisphere. They were the first. Matter of fact, the word slave comes from Slavic. Right. Yeah, they were the first slaves here. Even during slavery, most slaves in the South were white, not black.
Exactly.
Yes. The forgotten cause of the Civil War were white slaves. And that's who Lincoln was trying to free, the white slaves.
Not
Thank
the
you,
black.
sister. Not the black. No, the white. Okay.
Not the black.
All right. 60 seconds. Now, I want everybody out there to hear me clear, especially these last phone calls. I want you to email me to give me that information so I'll know what you are and what you're asking, and we'll go into it more in depth. I'll talk back with my guest, and we'll set up another show to go into it deeper from the question, because everything started lighting up on my board near the end. So we want to have some time to deal with it. But I want to especially thank Miss Turner for giving us your time, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope we can do it again.
Yes, I did.
All right. I love that. And Brother Tarvers, you know you in the mix, so I'll be getting back with you so we can do it again, okay?
Thank you for having me, brother. Peace to everybody out there. Appreciate all the listeners. Love you very much.
All
yes,
right.
thank you very much.
All right, sister. Thank you.
Thank you.